Hi, y'all. We're going live. Gonna share about creativity. Hope y'all wanna get down with some radiant energy. I'm really excited to have this conversation with Miss Vanessa. We're so passionate about this here topic. Deep in the soul. She's about to join us here. I just invited her to join. Yeah. You gotta accept, Miss Vanessa. You gotta accept the invitation, darling. Gonna invite you again. Yeah. The flowing energy of creativity is such a force in creation, huh? It's really the juice. I found the juice of my life and what's got me through so many hard times. She said, send it again. I sent it to you 3 times, baby. I invited you to join, and you just got to accept. On your end, it says you're unable to join. That's so weird. Why are you unable to join? Darling. I'm inviting you. I'm just going to keep inviting you, Miss Vanessa.
Woo,
now
okay.
today. Now we got right. You. Okay. Perseverance. So you know, the technology guys don't got nothing on us, baby.
I was like, I know I could claim that it's elder millennial analog situation, but actually what just happened right there is called Costa Rican jungle internet. It's a delay. Yeah.
That's why, you know, us
hey,
jungle ladies, we just navigate. We just navigate.
Yeah, that's right. We got you in Mexico, me in the beautiful Costa Rica. So we're doing a whole Central American throw down right now.
That's right.
Very blessed to be here in this beautiful land.
So much.
And Mexico's amazing too. So I'll take it even with the crazy internet sometimes. It works.
Well, you're looking gorgeous, darling. I'm loving the getup. I wish I could see this gown you're wearing.
Oh, it's a kimono, baby.
Oh, come on. Oh.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's a kimono. So I just want to say thank you again, as always, for being such an incredibly beautiful motivator to get together and to inspire each other, to share ideas, and to keep creativity flowing. Obviously, meeting each other at Momentum Artist Residency, and we've only just known each other for a short time, but again, like everything in life right now, I feel that frequency is really reducing and sort of signifying who we want to align ourselves with on like a family level. So when things make sense, they just make sense, and you just trust them and you just go. And I really appreciate that kind of resonance with you, which has been such a blessing. And yeah, we were just chatting and both sharing the fact that we've been through some things in life, like all human beings. But it's been really nice to be able to come into a space with you and speak the same language around, traversing a lot of different adversities in life, and also using creativity as the primary self, one of the primary selves on that healing path. And even though, like all healing paths and all aspects of the human existence, there's highs, there's lows, there's plateaus, there's moments when we feel like we are really walking our walk and talking our talk. And there's other times when we, are going through a more tender moment and maybe things seem a little more chaotic. And when you had invited me to have this conversation today, the first thing that came to my heart was that it would be such an amazing opportunity to because we always have perceptions of what we think is going on with people, and especially on Instagram, it's like a complete gong show, right? Because you're getting a very narrow paradigm of how you're perceiving someone, and usually in times where they're highlighting celebratory moments or achievements. And I think it's also equally as important to express, you know, the different caveats of how we've learned things along the way and the tools that have helped us, because it's never always just that myopic of a paradigm. And it's always really interesting when, you know, people might be like, oh, hey, she's so fly. Look at that fly blonde girl. Oh, she got it. And then it's really like, actually, no, this, and this is going on, because no human being is that simplistic. So just any opportunity to speak to that, I think is beautiful.
Oh, Mama, you got me lit up, because I know we both want to share a little bit before we jump into the juicy juice content of all the tips and ways that we've overcome that inner critic, or the things that have kept us from expressing creatively, that we both have wanted to share a little bit about our stories. So I'll just jump in with that beautiful intro to what has gotten me here to this place of feeling empowered in my creative expression. And it really comes from a place, you know, when I think I was 18, and I was heavily into drugs and alcohol at the time to really cope with a lot of the trauma that were starting to surface from earlier in my life. I was in an abusive relationship, and the only way that I could kind of cope with my reality was to write poetry, and to draw. And I wasn't somebody that grew up with, like, you know, some people grew up with like music training and dance training, and like my family couldn't afford dance lessons, couldn't afford music lessons. And I'd always loved to draw. That was something that, you know, I'd always done, but I'm not somebody that like has formal training, you know. So I've always just done it as a way to help me cope with the challenges in my life. And then as I rooted deeper into that journey of like understanding that there's something that's bubbling up inside of me that's really hard for me to hold, and I need to get it out. And as I began to lean deeper into getting it out through a medium outside of myself that feels empowering, that I actually don't need money. You know, I don't need money to write a poem. I don't need money to make a drawing or to write a song or to make a dance. And so for me, it really came down to an internal sense of knowing that there's turmoil on the inside, and I'm not okay with just letting it sit there. And I want to let it get out of me. As I began to do that more and let the creativity have a voice, let it have movement, let it have color and sound, I began to feel that I felt so much more freed up inside. And so that feeling of feeling more freed up inside, I began to want more of. So I began to just express myself creatively more and more, and oftentimes wouldn't share these things, you know, would not share these poems or these images or songs that I wrote. And so then eventually it got to be a whole journey of like, okay, now how do I actually take that risk of being seen and sharing these creations that were coming from a very vulnerable place of when I created them. And how do I actually get that out on the outside? Because I've then been in a process of being an arts-based youth empowerment facilitator. And so then I witnessed these young people that had come into the camp with like their hood on their head. They didn't want to talk to anybody. They were like super withdrawn, to like on stage expressing themselves, super in their power, total life transformation. I'm like, okay, I haven't ever had the opportunity of being a youth in one of these camps, but I clearly see the transformation of like, there's something to, you can't just keep it inside for yourself. Like there's something happens
when you actually take the stage and you share your poem or your song or your dance and other people see it. Like, that's actually a necessary step to true healing, to true empowerment, to truly like coming out the other side of whatever the adversity is that you are speaking to in your poem or your whatever, you know? So that's when I began to go about that journey on for myself, and you know what we're going to share more about, like how I overcame really those mental blocks to being able to share what it is I have to share.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there too, in terms of like the necessary step to being witnessed, you know, in so many capacities in our life as human beings. Just being able to be seen fully is such an incredible catharsis, because it allows us to create a relationship to an embodied truth where we realize, oh, fuck, that whole story I was telling myself about how the world was going to end after I did that thing, oh, that's not actually true. Oh, I can do that maybe again, like at least once or twice more, you know, without everything just being complete disaster. So I think that actually that is for me one of the most beautiful things that we have in common as human beings, is that we have the same, all the work that I've done with people in retreats and community wellness. It's so interesting when we start going into conversations around fear, how this primary fear around being terrified of being witnessed is so prevalent in each one of us. And there's some other program there that we'll get into more later. But yeah, it's a type of medicine that you can't argue with, because it really is a felt truth. And for myself, I mean, I believe all human beings, we're all creative, we're all artists, therefore, but like really coming to understand, how do you say, like, you know, when you were sharing your piece, the potency of using art as medicine, and what that did for me as a young person. Well, I was an only child until I was 10. So I was out there, I was doing accents with all my stuffed toys. I was like, this is Lucy from Cornwall, and this is Gwendolyn, and then this is like, we've got Susan over here. You know what I'm saying? It was like a whole thing. And so I think to actually avoid putting me in a mental institution, my mom was like, she's an actor. She said, she's an actor. It's okay. You know,
Yes, darling.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think starting there, for me, it was always just a relationship to being able to be myself, and having the type of imagination where I needed to satiate my imagination. Otherwise, I would go a little bit nuts. And then as, you know, you get into out of the conditioning of childhood and you get into the conditioning of the adult, you start to become, unfortunately, like more self-aware, right? Which is great for many. Sometimes for the creative process can be a huge hindrance, because you start to limit your expression based on what other people think of you. And I would say a lot of the tools that we're going to talk about today have been really they've all been experienced through my life and through my individual relationship to confidence and to resiliency and to grief and to many different things. But all of that is circling back to finding that child inside again, who just wants to be in the unfettered, gleeful expression, totally wild imagination, and have that be okay. And that's actually one of the reasons why I started working in music and arts since I was 19, and came from festival culture, is because festivals to me were resembling what it was like to be that 8-9-year-old girl with all the stuffed animals running around dressing up in her mom's clothes and being like, I'm a bad bitch. So, what do I do now in performance? I'm from an acting background, but I do spoken word poetry, as well as I do various different types of like voiceover contracts. And then I do hosting events and retreats, and have done for many years. So,
right. And you do, you know, impersonations, vibration station, just in the that's how we just started riffing off each other, like doing different voices. You know, that's one of the things I loved about our connection. And yeah, I actually did do acting as a kid, just in school plays, you know, like, so I did some acting and actually have a degree in dance as a choreographer and dancer. Dance is definitely like my number one passion. And Also love poetry, also love drawing and painting and singing. So, you know, I just dabble in it all. And creativity is like I worship it. You know, I worship this force that really like has transformed my life, and I've seen it transform so many other people's lives. So should we get into some of this juice that we wanna juice out?
100%.
We've got our whole little list here of what we were gonna deliver. So we're gonna deliver, y'all. Thanks for everybody who's with us, like here in this moment in time or watching the replay. It really juices us up to talk about this, to share about this, because we're so passionate about creativity as a medium for self-empowerment, for building community, for building connection. So thank y'all for joining us. This is why we're here, to serve y'all, really. And you know, it helps us to just know we're not alone in community that cares about creative expression. So should we get to our first point here of why is it important? Why do we think it's important that people share their expression? Like, why?
I mean, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to do it?
Sure, I can go first. Absolutely. So it actually, this really relates, I mean, back to some of why I was sharing it was important for me in terms of like taking an experience, taking a feeling. And again, this actually relates to the angle that I take around creativity that I think is essential for folks who maybe don't have training, you know, professional training, didn't grow up with, you know, mentorship, or didn't grow up with lessons, or didn't go to some conservatory or whatever. You know, for people who are like average people who have an interest or a draw to express themselves creatively, the angle that I take is it's around creativity is that it's not, the goal is not to produce some very polished professional thing that you're going to market. You know, for me, the goal of creativity is actually to know myself more, and for other people to know the true me more. And so the reason and the why I express my creativity is to liberate more of my true self. And what's underneath that true self is a lot of usually cultural conditionings around hiding. Maybe we've gotten that message that you need to hide how you really feel, how you really think, how you really want to express yourself because of messaging from family, culture, from your gender, identity, from the society, whatever those messages that a lot of us have gotten of, like, it's not really safe to express how we really feel or how we really think.
Yeah.
And so for me, why it's important to share your expression is actually that subscribing to that programming of like, it's not really safe for me to express who I really am in the ways that I want to, keeps us shackled. It honestly holds our life force energy and keeps it down. And if we want to live a life where we're actually feel free and are able to feel authentic in who we are and authentic in our embodiment, creative expression is a doorway to get there. And because we can actually take those experiences that we've had that have felt painful or wounding and use it as fuel to say, like, okay, this experience or this feeling that I have that is really crunchy and is not sitting well inside of me, what does it want to say? What sound would it make, or what movement would it make, or how, if I were to let this part have expression, what would it do? Then all of a sudden takes what has held our life force energy on the inside and it puts it on the outside, which liberates that stuck energy. And all of a sudden we feel more liberated because this thing that has been like held, coiled up inside, now is a poem, or now is a dance or a song or a theater piece or whatever it may be. And now I get to actually see a reflection of my beauty, of my brilliance, of my genius, because everybody is going to do that process differently. And that's what can also help to squelch comparison, which we'll get into later. And I could go on and on about this topic, but I won't. That's just what I want to say of why we think it's important for everybody to express themselves creatively. And I'm super stoked to hear why you think it's important, Miss Vanessa.
Yeah. I mean, you covered a lot there, and so I really resonate with many of the things that you said. I also just think it's just a part of, it's innate to all of humanity. So it's important that we express ourselves creatively because we are creative beings, and that's innate to every single one of us. There is, you know, something that I read once that I held really, really dear to my heart was an indigenous elder had said, every blade of grass has its purpose. And, you know, from the outset, we might just be like, oh, that's grass. But actually, every single piece of that grass is created with a different vein signature than the one beside it and will never be recreated no matter how many times you cut it down in the same way again. The same goes for leaves, the same goes for flowers, the same goes for grains of sand on the beach. So for me, it's like everything, it's important to be creative and express yourself. It's because otherwise you were made for a reason to do just exactly that. Yeah. And how it flows through you and how it looks, exactly to your point, babe, it's like that's your unique gift. That's your unique how do you say, impact and imprint and essence and like relationship with the sacred covenant that gets to express itself through your flesh, which is, wow, what a fucking honor. And when we get when we kind of get out of our own way and are able to give that part of ourselves, that really vulnerable part of ourselves, because we've made it vulnerable, because, you know, we really, in this society, our value systems are quite inverted. But when we give that part of our heart to life, it feels really scary. And then when we get to the other side, we realize, like, oh, yeah, that which made me wouldn't have put this side of me unless I was meant to sing it out loud. And I think that creation of that experience more and more and more can help us to live a more joyful life, a more faithful life too, right? Because then we're not so like in our head about it all the time. So that's why I think it's important and certainly been invaluable to me as just a learning tool, and a really beautiful aspect of humility as well. And then, you know, just going back to what you were saying about comparison, we'll just move on to the next point. It's like, as humans, we got this whole situation going on called social media, and it's great for little things like connection and sharing things and putting people in the driver's seat of their own artistic careers 100%. And also, if you ain't coming to it with the right mind some days, it can eat you. It can really, really, really be a consumer of, oh God, I heard this phrase recently, it was like, it can be a consumer of your dreams. Because, yeah, right? Because your authentic dreams for yourself, your visions for yourself, the more you keep seeing what other people are doing all the time, the more you're going to start subconsciously calibrating yourself over here, until eventually we start to live in a world that seems increasingly more homogenized. And that, believe any kind of standardization of life doesn't exist in nature. So it's innately the opposite of the creative life force that we're come from. So it's an interesting sort of thing. And I would say for me personally, because that's all I could ever speak from, is my personal experience. Yeah. For me personally, my biggest battle with my whole, I would say since, social media, but also I would say in terms of like the inner critic, is coming from those moments when I'm not finished my project and I look what other people are doing. And I get all like, oh shit, maybe I should do it this way, or I should do it that way, or like this project's not finished, so maybe I should make it look more like that person's, or like I don't look like that. Am I going to be successful because I don't look like that? There's all these sorts of, and I know we all have them individually, so I won't get into it. But I definitely think for me, the biggest limitations around creativity are comparison for sure. It's the thief of joy. And the second thing is non-acceptance. So, and what I mean by non-acceptance is when you try to make something and then you're about to like perform, or there's a performance date that you have, so you're finishing something and meet that date, and then you get a ton of resistance or fear, and instead of just accepting it, you go into this whole rabbit tail, pardon me, or about why you're feeling that resistance versus just accepting it. So those are my two things, because once you accept that resistance, it doesn't have any power. What do you indulge? Hey, what are your little trip ups for your
yes. I actually, the way I just want to touch on that, the way that I work with resistance, because it's like, now I've done enough performance, I've done enough stepping out onto my edge that I'm like, it's gonna come. There's gonna come this point right when I start a creative project where I'm like, I don't really want to actually do that. Never mind. And I'm like, oh, it's that part. Hi, you come every time. Welcome back. It's that point I want to quit. It's that point that I tell myself what I'm doing is horrible. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Welcome back. I know. You come every time. Good to see you again. We're going to keep moving forward, though, because we know this is just a part. And if I keep going to the end, I'm going to be fucking proud of myself that I swear to you.
Sorry. But like legit.
That's my inner dialogue.
Yeah.
That's my inner dialogue. There you have it. But I want to say with comparison, like one of the things that really helped me initially, that one of my mentors shared with me, was if you can flip comparison to inspiration. And just like in your mind, like a switch of like the moment you see somebody, what's up, Addison? Hey, girl. The moment that you see somebody doing something that you want to do or expressing themselves in some way that you're like, whoa, that's amazing. And then we can start to get into like, oh, I don't know if I could ever do that. Like, oh, they're so amazing. Like, just flipping it and being like, that's inspiring me.
Yeah.
That is inspiring me. And another tool that I just got recently was like saying green light, green light, green light. Like, go girl, go boy, go human, like get that, slay. Like switch it to, instead of being like, oh, I'm gonna retract and like think that I'm a hole in the wall and could never shine, to like, you shine. If they shine, I can shine. And just like, don't even spiral. Don't even start that whole, because it is a spiral, right? We've all been on that comparison spiral where we start to be like, oh, like it goes down this black hole to where, and then all of a sudden we've spent an hour and a half on Instagram and we feel like shit. And we feel like we're never going to amount to anything. Like, we've all been there. We've all, like, scrolled ourselves into a hole, you know? Like, and so for me, I've just, no. Like, you know, so now it's just, for me, it's just catching it and being like, green light, green light, green light, baby, shine, fucking slay. Yes, you're inspiring me. My voice is important, too. And then the other thing, like specifically with Instagram, using Instagram as your platform, you know, but I think for a lot of people, like it's figuring out which platform is your platform for expression, because Instagram is not the only one, you know, and maybe it is toxic for you, and maybe it's like you need to start going to poetry slams, like out live with people, or you need to start, you know, like figuring out a different platform, you know. But if Instagram is that platform, for me, one thing that has helped is like posting first. And like if I have a vision of a post I want to create, or I'm like, I know I want to post this dance or this thing that I've done, like doing that first and just getting in and out. And sometimes for me, and not actually even taking in anyone else's content. And sometimes when you are in a creative process, like that is actually necessary, to not take in other people's thing. And that's a practice that a lot of people do, a lot of artists do actually when they're in like a deep creative process, is actually detoxing like anybody else's expression and really digging into your own inner voice of whatever it is that you are creating at that time, like, and letting the world inspire you, you know? And that was one thing I did when I was choreographing my final piece in college, was like, I was so in the act of what that piece was about. And one of my mentors was like, let the universe speak to you and inspire you. And all of a sudden I would start to get these inspirations from walking outside or hearing a conversation or something, you know, would happen, and it would inspire that piece. So yeah, those are some tools.
That's great. Yeah, I definitely think that it's amazing how really checking your temperature with your dependency on everything always at various times in your life is so key nowadays, because we've got so much cheap dopamine on the table at any given point. We can just access it. And also to really marry yourself, like you said, to your vision, to get in and to get out, and keep your focus is really crucial. Yeah, for just maintaining any kind of momentum with any of the things that we're doing as well. And yeah, the acceptance piece to that resistance that inevitably is going to come, that no matter what, you just got to make friends with that little monster on your shoulder, because he's going to come around every old time.
Every time. Every time.
And so then other, like the ones that you mentioned, is there, like, I would say the things that sort of comparison conjures the most is something that we refer to often as imposter syndrome. And that's also what I'm referring to as the little beast on your shoulder, is this imposter syndrome. That, again, having worked with so many people through the years and being like very immersed in an artistic community, that, you know, there is this recurring theme always of trying something new or getting booked for a bigger and bigger and bigger gig, and like being an opener to being a headliner. And then, you know, and you face these sort of inner battles with the self around like, okay, is this going to be enough this time? The more gradient my success becomes. And yeah, I mean, I can speak to a little bit for myself of what's worked with the imposter syndrome before you do.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important, as you were saying, to really make sure that you create a space between yourself and too much media consumption, number one, before you're going into anything like that, because it can obviously influence how you're perceiving yourself. And then it's so, like, getting into practice. This is something new I've actually really incorporated into my own life, which I was sharing with you recently, is really acknowledging like all of the successes that you've had. Like, for whatever reason, we seem to be primarily focused in our life on the things we haven't accomplished yet, and that's wonderful for motivation. But when we use it with comparison, it can actually be a bit of a recipe for you know, making us feel not so fulfilled with ourselves and where we might be at in that present moment. But definitely going back and being able to look like, oh, actually that was a really challenging time that I overcame, or that was a really successful project that I executed, or that was an amazing run of that theater show. Whatever it may be, just really sit with yourself and go through and celebrate the things that you have done, and continue to reinvigorate that same sense of faith in your life has been helpful for me, having a larger sense of humor with the imposter voice than when I give it any sort of credence, because it gonna run with you. If you give it some time and space, it gonna take you places. So now I just try to essentially dull the voice by looking at the evidence historically. And that's been something that's been really helpful with that.
You know, I also love doing this by like your close inner circle people who really know you and who've seen you shine and who are like your tribe, of being like, hey babe, can you give me like a little pep talk, like bath of how I'm a badass? Because I just really need your reflection right now. And I, like, with my inner circle people, I love giving this to them. I love receiving it. It works so well because, you know, a lot of times we have our blinders actually to our brilliance, and the people who really love us, who really know us, are so want to hold that mirror up for you and be like, let me tell you, babe, let me just remind you right now how incredible you are. And
Totally.
it's such a powerful thing to receive, because, and I found that to be so effective at just squelching that imposter syndrome, as well as like, you know, a lot of us, maybe we've received a beautiful card, you know, at one point in time from somebody, a handwritten card thanking us for how we impacted them. You know, I keep those cards around, and when I'm in those moments, I go back and I reread, you know, how I've impacted somebody's life. And even if it's not directly related to like the fear that I'm having around the expression, still it just boosts up this sense of like, I have value, you know, and I've impacted people in a positive way. And so that's helped me. And one of the things I actually just heard today in this training that I'm on is that imposter syndrome is a good thing. And this is what she said. She said, it's a good thing because it means you are actually stretching outside of your comfort zone. And this is the comparison she gave. She's like, if, you know, for someone, say, who's working on an assembly line, and they're just doing their job, right? They have the same job every day, doing the thing. Like, they're not afraid that they're not good enough, or like don't have the capacity to do that job. It's you know, they're not really stretching themselves. It's easy. That fear comes up when we're going outside of our comfort zone, which is so we can understand and be like, oh, okay, I am stretching myself. I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. I'm doing something that's beyond maybe what I've done before. So that you can almost anticipate it, like similar to the resistance. You can almost anticipate that imposter syndrome is going to come up the moment that we start to stretch out of our comfort zone. There it's going to be. And instead of making it bad or wrong, or making ourselves bad or wrong for feeling that, being like, oh, okay, here you are. I thought you might come around because I'm moving to bigger, better things. And you know what? I'm just not going to buy into the story you're telling me. We're going to, you know, and then also the mantra for me is done is better than perfect. Because the imposter has this voice that's like, it'll be like, you know, you're not qualified to do this, or you're not good enough to do this. And then when you start to create it, it's like, well, it's actually not polished enough, and it's really not, you know, and it starts, the inner critic will start to come in, you know. So for me, having these mantras of like, done is better than perfect, you know, that just catch those stories and keep them from escalating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, progress, I mean, of course it's cliche, but progress is ultimately better than perfection, because perfection is just an allied bedfellow of the imposter syndrome. It's just another caveat that actually looks like trying to help you, but it's really ultimately just preventing you from being seen, because we're all terrified to show our heart sometimes. But I love what you said too with the imposter syndrome about, you know, really just wanting to acknowledge it and make friends with it, because ultimately it's presenting itself because you're getting closer to your truth. And if we flip it, it's like, it's a good sign. If you ain't feeling the imposter syndrome, maybe you need to step it up a little bit, because it's a really good sign that you are evolving into an area that not only scares you and challenges you, but most likely the only reason why the syndrome is able to present, certainly this is the true for me in my own life, is because I'm in alignment, basically. Like, I'm on the path that is a path that is where I'm headed towards in my dream space, you know. And so because the stakes are quite high for me internally, then I noticed that that's when I become a little bit more susceptible to this thing coming up, trying to tell me like, oh, hey, don't go there. Don't go. No, don't go there. Don't go there. Yeah. So it can be beautiful. It can be a beautiful reminder that you're where you need to be, actually.
Well, darling, I know we had one more point we wanted to touch on. I'm also aware of the time. Do we want to just touch real quick on this last point of like, getting into the flow state and shedding need for validation before we share our poems?
Yeah, I think that, and the other thing too, because we have, you know, sort of touched on the things that we indulge in that you know, stop the flow of creativity, I think, as well. Sharing some things that, what are the ways that allow us to create with a compassionate inner voice, you know, like, you know, how that looks for you. Yeah. And then exactly, how do we express ourselves while staying in the flow and not looking for it from an point.
Yes.
So for me, just real quick, the compassionate inner voice really has been a lifelong difficulty. And for me, that's from a societal recognition around wanting to be more acceptable if I play small. Because I'm crazy, a little bit of a weirdo, and so, you know, something we connect on, yeah. And we all, but
big energy, baby, big energy. We know.
Crazy, honey. She needs to be quiet. So she needs to be quiet. Neighbors are getting a little bit concerned. So I think for me, for whatever reason, from a young, playing small meant being safe. And the decades of trying to just untangle that, and to realizing that actually liberation is safety, truth is safety, honesty, and freedom can only come from those places, like true fear within the body and within the emotional realm. So the compassionate inner voice lately has been something that I've been working on, and by spending a lot of time in nature and in Costa Rica, saying that there isn't judgment in nature, you know. There isn't judgment in nature. It doesn't actually exist in subjective reality. All of reality is very neutral. You know, the birds aren't judging the tree, which isn't judging the fern because you got fat last year, which isn't saying, you know what I'm saying? That ain't none of that's happening.
So true. So true.
I spend a lot of time in nature, and growing up I always have, and it's because I feel like I can be totally seen and accepted there. So noticing that, how can I take myself and totally see and accept myself, and that's been really helpful to get out of my own way and know that, like, so just to the other point of like creating and not doing it for some external accolade or some sort of external validation. Well, the compassionate is that when I fully accept myself, I don't take it so seriously. So when I'm able to be like, okay, V, like, you just got what you got. That's what we got. That's the deck we playing with. It's gonna be bigger than some other people's deck. It's gonna be smaller than other people's deck. But this is the deck that I got to play with. So what kind of hand am I gonna throw out? And it's really hard to define that sometimes because our interests change and our seasons change so much as artists and human beings. You know, if you're a DJ, sometimes like for 2 years you might be into hip hop or bass, and then the next couple of years it might be an entirely different genre that you want to play. It's like that in every type of artistry because we are always evolving as human beings. So for me, the biggest takeaway of all of the tools that I've practiced throughout my life and throughout my education and throughout my artistic career and endeavors has been to just get to a place of healthy acceptance. That this is the best you got right now, and it's beautiful, and it may not look like X, Y, and Z, but once you can accept that, then the outcome of whatever that is not so serious. And it's going to be beautiful because you just haven't expected it to be perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but
yeah, it's and I
learning how to laugh.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's like 1,000 pounds off.
Yes, exactly. And I think I'm like, there's so much I think of what we've both been sharing this evening around like reframe, you know, and how much the mind actually can inhibit us from allowing this very natural, like you said, in nature, you know, this very natural force that innately wants to come through us in a very unique way that is to try to put some kind of mental standard on is really going to inhibit and to squelch, you know, what our natural brilliance and our natural genius and the way that it wants to emerge. Which for me, it actually relates to the point that I wanted to make about how to get in the flow of creativity and not need validation, and also how the compassionate voice comes in. But the first thing I want to say just about getting in the flow, to where the mind or the inner critic is not actually the one that's running the show, but where we're actually in that flow state, that, you know, for anyone who's creative and has touched that place, it's like, that's why we want to keep creating the dance, the music, the whatever it is that we do, you know, is when we've touched those places where, like, we really don't give a fuck about the outcome. We're in the process and we're feeling that juice, you know, of the process, where we feel connected to ourselves and connected to life and connected to something that is beyond actually that inner critic. And so for me, how to get into those flow states has so much to do with environment. So setting up an environment that is conducive to expression. And so that's going to look different for everyone. You know, for me, it looks like, first of all, when I had roommates, like telling my roommates, because I knew if I felt subconscious, because I like to, when I like do my choreographic process, I'm like, I'm making all of these crazy sounds, and I'm like in this whole other, you know, so I had to tell them, like, hey guys, like, I'm gonna make sounds that sound like I'm dying or something's like really awful is happening, and I'm okay. But I knew I needed to tell them that to set the space for myself to enter the flow, so that I'm not worried, like, what are they thinking, or is somebody gonna like come in here and check on me when, like, I really don't want to be checked on, like, you know. So for me, it's like setting the space, setting the time. So for you, it's understanding, like, when have you felt those flow states in the past? Like, were you outside, you know, were you in a certain environment? Like, what do you need to kind of set that space for yourself to enter into? And then I think no matter what your medium is, like, doing something to get into the body. So shaking, like shaking, and even just 5 minutes to shake, to stretch, to like take a run around the block, jump on the trampoline, especially something that has like cardio in it, that is really gonna just like get us literally out of the head and into the body before you go into your creative process is huge. And then, you know, for me, in terms of not needing the validation, it really, and I have a lot of experience with this, because I had zero dance training when I decided to major in dance and went into like a professional dance training program, you know, university degree program, dancing with everybody had training since they were like 3 to 5 years old. So I was getting like zero validation, zero recognition from the professors, from the teachers, because I was like super awkward, you know, in the ballet class. And I had to just continually be like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Really leaning into my why, like, why is this important to me?
Yeah.
And that, for me, just for you, why you want to create whatever it is, like, really lean into that and just hold on to that, because nobody can take that from you. And it's very liberating. It was very liberating to get to that point where I was like, I really didn't give a fuck, you know, like there were certain moments where it was like hurtful that I didn't get that, but eventually I was so deep in my why that I'm like, I don't give a fuck if y'all like what I'm doing or not what I'm doing, because I know why I'm here. And it's not about any of you. It's really not.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be turned on by your own shit at the end of the day.
Yes.
It's like your whole life, no matter what you're doing, it's like that should be the baseline that we hope to get to, is that it's only going to be you that you're going to be with from now until the end. So getting really right with knowing that that validation is you, and it stops with you, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, girl.
That's right.
I can't even imagine. That's like just like Napoleon Dynamite #2 waiting. Haley goes to ballet course with zero training.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh. And like in a whole like
just like video archive footage of that.
Oh my gosh, I wish. Because like it was so funny. Yeah, it was so funny. And I almost quit. There's so many times I almost quit. But again, I was like, for me, my why I wanted to dance and really go deeper into that is it's always been the space where I feel the most connected to myself, to source, and to creation. And I wanted to really continue to feel how the vessel of my body could be so deeply in communion with something beyond words. And that feeling of the vessel of my body being so deeply in communion with something beyond words, like I want to deepen into that, you know. I want to really like feel that. And yeah. What's up? So glad everybody's here. We're about to share some poems. Oh, my homies are coming on. What's up? Yay. You wanna launch us off on your poem, Miss Vanessa?
Sure, Mama. I'll do that. Yeah, so it's been really wonderful to, again, just to wrap this up, we talked a little bit about it from the very beginning, but just to meet you in artist residency and to be able to have this dear sweet communion of souls, in the sense of being able to share so easily around, you know, the difficulties and the limitations that we have sometimes, as well as the beautiful things that we've made together and made individually. And I really am so excited that we're getting into a space now because of social media where we are starting to chip away some of the illusions a little bit about everyone being perfect and having their shit together all the time, because that's just not the truth. And being able to get in the process of like asking for help when you need it and being like, hey, you know, showing yourself to people and just really starting to like flex those muscles more and more and more to get you on the path of like being able to really experience that joy through being witnessed, so it's not so terrifying. I think it's a really, really exciting and beautiful, potent kind of human renaissance that we're witnessing in that way. So
Yes. Yes. Oh,
a situation. That's it right there.
and I just have to add. I just have to add at the end, like, honestly, true art, like true creative expression, the kind that moves people, the kind that like does something, you know, is just, what's up, Drea? The kind that really moves people and does something is never polished.
No.
It's raw.
No.
You know, there's something about like the rawness of just being like, I'm just gonna let this come out, however it comes out.
Yeah. And
that is magnetic. You know, there's something truly magnetic about that. And so I just had to speak to that in terms of like, you know, getting out of our own way when it comes to expressing ourselves.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, like we really are a human family, and art is why it sounds a homonym for the word heart, you know. It's because like we are creating from that chakra point, as a way to transmit truth. And when we transmit truth to each other, we can build relationship. And then when we understand that there's relatable qualities in each one of us to each one of us, like you ever go to a music festival or a stadium concert and you look around and you're like, wow, holy fuck, it's like 40,000 homies, you know. And music brings us together so obviously in that way, music and but celebration, whether it's around the fire or having parades or just storytelling, sharing our stories, you know, through the medium of creative expression is the very fabric of human existence. I think right now what we're doing in society is coming to a point of questioning, why do we have this hierarchical relationship to it? Meaning, like, why do we think some people can do some things, but we can't do them ourselves? And it's becoming really beautiful to begin to kind of get in there and take those things out, because the more that we start to just try, you know, a little bit and support each other and not be you know, overly protective of our compliments, because, you know, like you were saying, you get your friends to tell you when your shit's badass, and so it helps you get over your imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, so we've normalized commiseration, but like, why aren't we normalizing celebration of each other as well in the same vein? And I think that as we become more aware of that and we start to use these sorts of tools and processes, then it's going to be such a rich creative environment where it doesn't have to look or sound like something in order to be successful. And I think we're there. And I think that the way social media has helped is to really break down like those big records or labels or agencies. And I'm excited to see where it keeps evolving. As long as we keep the imposter syndrome away, we get there.
That's right, boo boo. That's a good word. That's a good word.
So we did this on the last live because we both like to write poetry and to share our words. So I'm just going to share a piece here, and then you're going to share, I think, 1 or 2 pieces right after. And this piece actually was written on the heels of me sitting with the illusion of why I think that my passion isn't worthy to be expressed for some reason. And then I just got to this point and I was like, you know what? Who the fuck am I not to? Who the fuck am I not to say what I want to say or not to do what I want to do? And so, yeah, so this piece is called Who Are We Not To? Yeah, and I invite anyone obviously to like close their eyes if they would like, just because I find IG is sort of weird, but I'm gonna read a piece. Yeah.
Love that.
Where does my heart go willingly? And who am I to not follow it? Because who am I not to tend to my dreams as if carefully nurturing a rare bud amongst the weeds, noticing the fortitude that it has to birth itself into existence, even amongst a soil overgrown with my mental resistance. Because who am I not to? Who am I not to hold myself and know myself and tell myself that you will no longer deprive yourself of time and space, and you will no longer deprive yourself from the things that you should say, that you will just no longer deprive, because that is not the same as your discipline. And who am I not to? Who am I not to observe the conspiracy of miracles in every sunset and watch the sky turn to stars and notice that the stars in the sky mirror the sacred freckles on my arm, a map of the cosmos that birthed us. And each one of us is a fragment of the universe in the perfect lineage of infinity. Because who are we not to know our origin of divinity? Every one of us is as essential as the breath that we are taking, because life was carved into the moment of our making. And see, I have a hard time sometimes walking in the waking in this media saturated mainstream dream where corruption betrays the value of people and society persuades us to run on a wheel of consumption and vanity, obsessed with the doing as opposed to the being of our own humanity. And I'm supposed to feel that this is normal somehow, but yet nothing feels real about this perpetuated world of fear. And I am so exhausted from trying to adhere to its surveillance and discrimination and politically correct designations that I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do as my ancestors did, which is to scream and to heal and to question and to dance. I want this fire in my heart to burn, because who am I not to care? Who am I not to look at every tree with wonder in my eyes and notice how the branches resemble the veins that run through me? Who am I not to hold hand out to a stranger that, although may be different, might also be in need? And who am I not to raise my eyes from the screens of social comparison in order to make observations of connection, to override the force-fed delusion of our scrolling separation? Because the moments of life will melt away on my tongue like honey if I do not slow down to savor them. And who am I not to try? To no longer be complicit in anything that prevents me from asking why. To no longer concede my own defeat to that which poisons me, but to learn the land and my body and the wrinkles on my face, which tell of last lines that correspond to the joy that created me in the first place. Because who am I not to be everything that is our birthright, which is bliss? And so my prayer these days is that we celebrate as much as we mourn. because our radiance is equally as crucial as the pain that purifies, and the concept of abundance exists from an energy of scarcity. And you are me, and I am you, and I will not swallow with the mind what my heart cannot chew. And who are we not to lead with a sense of our own endless possibility? Because we are not the sleeping, we are the source. And so in these moments of deepening curiosity, I ask myself, where does the heart go willingly? And do I have the courage to follow?
Mm.
Thank you.
You got me crying over here, mama. No, for real. Like, this is such a real moment of why it's so important to express ourselves. Like, witnessing your glow right now, witnessing your genius, witnessing your brilliance. This is where it's like becomes so real of why it's important, is because I've seen this and experienced it time and time again. When we all have the courage to express ourselves creatively in a real way, it guaranteed is going to impact somebody in a positive way. Guaranteed. Yeah. Guaranteed. You know, there's been so many times where I've heard somebody, witness somebody, where it gave me something I really needed right then. You know? And so like, and this is one thing that really helped me when I was in a really like dark spiral of like self-criticism around my dance, was somebody's telling me and like in this very forceful way of like, your expression is not for you, it's for everybody else. Like, you holding it inside is fucking selfish. It's actually selfish, you know. And that reframe of like, no, what you have to say, what you have to express is actually for everyone else. And so thank you. There was so much amazing gold in that poem, and I'm so happy it's on your Spotify, because I could listen to that every day like a freaking mantra. Seriously, mama, so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. And like you said, I'm just a vessel. Like, I'm just we're all just little flesh suits rolling around, gliding into.
Don't deflect, baby. You got talent, girl. Okay, take a compliment. All right.
I'm just saying that I don't have any understanding about the great mystery of where our natural inspiration comes from to share. But what I will say is, it's always worth it to follow that impulse, no matter what, because to your point, it's not for you, it's through you. It's not for you.
That's right.
You know, it's through you. And I think that it's so important that we find whatever inroads we have in this life to continue this bold act of humanity to connect with each other, because them robots are just nipping at our heels now, y'all. So whatever we can do, whatever we can do to bring it back to the tactile, tangible exchange of real heartfelt emotion with one another, truthful, authentic emotion, is really something to celebrate, to honor, and to protect. I feel so honored. Thank you for your reflection. Appreciate it. And on that little note there, my dearie, I'm gonna close my eyes and you gonna give us a little reading of some beautiful words that you were inspired to write.
This is a short one. It's short. It's real. It's just a small little snippet. I told Vanessa all of my longer ones I need reworking. But this is a more recent poem. It's called Mother Tree, Mother Root. Pull me into you, Mother Earth, Mother Tree. Let me know something, your roots, your vitality. Take these scars and make them dust, to blow away in the winds of your leaves.
Let me feel your eternal embrace and rest in the knowing of home in my bones, in my flesh, in the holy sanctity you possess. Give me roots to fly. Teach me to listen and feel what we are inside. Wake me up to life divine, mother root, mother tree. Unwind the tension and pain in me. Spread me out wide for love to fly.
You know, succinct is beautiful because I felt that all the way through. And there's a theme that when you share things with me that I find is really naturally, organically coming through in your writing right now, and it's a theme of like breaking up. It's a theme of flight, freedom. It's a theme of almost like initiation. And I think that's really beautiful to witness that coming to the surface, maybe consciously, maybe not consciously, but yeah. And that's why we're here, you know, that's why we're having this conversation. It's because we get to a point in the life where Anais Nin has this really great quote where it's like, the risk becomes greater to remain bud as to bloom, you know.
That's right, baby.
Meaning that the pain and the suffering of keeping your music locked inside you, it becomes more painful at a certain point in a really real way, and then you just get bored, and then you're like,
dude,
okay, fuck it.
I love that you cited that, because I'm literally like, the post that I was gonna make tomorrow is with that exact quote. Like,
oh, nice.
I know, like, I love the universe, like, and because that's so real. That's so real for me right now. Like, just moving to Mexico, taking the biggest leap that I've ever made of my life, and not having the safety net of like a backup job, you know. It's all in on me and what I'm doing, what I'm creating. And so, yeah, it you know, I really truly got to that point where like that feeling of not expanding or not spreading out and taking flight was more painful and more uncomfortable than the risk of like, nope, I'm gonna do this. So yes, that's a beautiful way just to wrap up this beautiful conversation with you, Vanessa. Always powerful, always deep, always so valuable, and it's a really perfect way just to share, you know, to say that whatever, you know, who's ever watching this, like whatever in you is at that point where it's a bubbling up feeling, you know, where you know there's something that you have to express, you know that there's something that you have to give, to that, like, I hope this can be that nudge that gets you to actually allow yourself to go into that.
Yes, absolutely. And to not take it so seriously in the sense of where you isolate your story around it, because let this be a testimony that we're all out here, every single one of us, working through our own bullshit, questioning our own insecurities. We ain't got to figure it out. I know, I'm like, even Aubrey Marcus, I'm sure, has his bad days, you know, like everyone's whoever is your, you know, person that you look up to. It's just an example. But yeah, that's just not reality. And I think reality in the human experience is translated through art, and art is actually our greatest devotion to faith. And so when we can live a faith-based life, whether that's taking a chance and going to Mexico, or coming up with a choreography for an experimental medium of silks, or whatever it may be, even just fucking cooking without a recipe sometimes is the whole thing, you know, like depending on who you are in the kitchen. So it's like, when we can look at art as a consecration of a faith-based way to live your life, it's amazing how much relief can come through because it feels so much less personal. Like you don't need to be in control all the time. You know, life has you. And the more you take a risk, want to express, and you realize that the world is there to welcome you with open arms and to hug you and celebrate you, you realize that that's also by design. That we come from love, and love is waiting to receive us no matter what. So
that's right. And also when you take those leaps and you express yourself and you're not met by love, you know, where you maybe have those comments or you have people unfollow you. I've been having that because I've been going out on a limb, and I'm at this point where I honestly don't give a fuck. Like, I've given way too many fucks for way too long to where I'm like, I'm fucking following whatever expression I want to put out there right now, and I believe that is valuable, because this is where I'm at. Is I want to be true to the expression that wants to come through me, even if it's posting a picture of me shaking my titties and my ass. Like, that's where I'm at, and that's what's real. Like, that's what I want to do, and I'm gonna do it. And I had like 20 people unfollow me, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, good. Like, because I'm gonna keep doing bold things. I'm gonna keep just being me, and not caring so much. Who gives a fuck about it? Like, because this is about me being true to myself, you know. And know that there will be also those people who are like, fuck yes, go girl, do that, you know, which there are.
And also too, when I was speaking to like, we're made from love, as exemplified by children, obviously, and then, like, you know, that's what we have to learn through our creative expression as adults, is that we can go give ourselves permission to go back to that state, that loving state. But I definitely concur with you, like, no matter what human beings or are, depending on what level, where they're at in their own journey, we don't resonate with everything. Like, I'm not getting down with everything Cardi B's putting out there and just like, woo, popping that off my, I mean, or whoever, do you know what I mean? But I won't take the time to ever write comments, but like, we all have our things that are for us, and we have things that are not for us. And some people are more vocal about that, and some people are not. To your point, we disempower ourselves when we give those comments more power than our relationship to source and our relationship to creative. So we lose foot on that joy for ourselves, and that potential fulfillment for ourselves, and that potential capacity to rewrite our story for ourselves. If we're like, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to post like that anymore because Sandra from Ohio just told me I'm an asshole. Oh, God damn it. No, go live back in the cave, get the cave ready. Like, I mean, and we've all been there. We've all done it. It's just that eventually, again, to the point, and then I'm going to stop talking for like 15 minutes over time. If you get to that point where you're just like, I can't give a fuck anymore about Sandy. I got shit to do. I'm like halfway to dead. So I'm like, if I don't start doing the things that I want to do right now, girl, this ain't going to be this hot 6 feet under. So I'm going to be working at what I can. So we need to just move it on up.
And it's so good to not, give a fuck. Oh, it feels so good. It feels so good.
Dude, I have a lisping crossing guard character that I do. That's not normal. Like, that's not.
Okay, can we just hear a little bit before we say goodnight? No.
Trace to come out. Trace like to play it safe. She's like to play it really, really safe. Yeah. So the crossing guard, and the thing is that she never really got the job. Like, she went to the hardware store one day and got a sign. And when she's at the crosswalk, people ask her, why are you so good at making everybody safe? And she says, because I saw a sign. And they said, God? She's like, no, I went to the hardware store. So there's Tracy at the crosswalk. Find her at Tracy Crossing on IG. She has tidbits around life, primarily around Wisdom Wednesdays. And yeah, so Tracy's going to go to bed now.
Good night, Tracy. I'm so glad you joined us. Maybe I'll see you at the hardware store.
I would like that very much. I'm going to see you at the hardware store, girl.
I'm going to see you there.
Okay, well, now that we're ending it on a fully schizophrenic note, I think that's enough. And I love you. And thank you to everybody who took some time listening. And I don't know if there's a way to do it, but I would love to like hear what people's tips or tools. Can I comments? I'm not too sure, but there's a lot
They
of
can
people.
comment. You can comment when we like. Well, I'm gonna post this.
Yeah,
and they can comment once it's posted. Mm-hmm.
Great, because then I love to. Because I know there's so many creative. I mean, everyone's creative, but I know there's so many people that came on tonight, and I would love to hear what other things people do, what practices, ways they comfort themselves, ways they get through perfectionism, and all of those things to get a finished project. Yeah, to the point where they're ready to perform it and present it. So if anyone has anything they'd like to share, always sponging it up.
Yeah, or like my girl Claudia, who's on here, who's a badass freaking jeweler and makes amazing jewelry, you know, and like, yeah, whatever you might want to share about your creative process, you know, like, yeah, there's so many of it's so exciting to me how like so many different flavors of creative genius in this world and creative beauty and how it takes form and how it can intersect, you know, and how we can collaborate. I just had this like spur of the moment thought of like, what if I created a dance piece that was inspired by one of Claudia's amazing jewelry creations, and like how that piece of jewelry makes me want to move, and you know, that's where we could just spin off into a whole other thing and why we really love creativity and community. Well, we love y'all. You should comment.
Okay, buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.